Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Today we're going to talk about LeSS, the large scale Scrum. I'm not going to talk about it, but I have invited my friend James Carpenter, who is a LeSS trainer, to talk about it. James is going to introduce himself and going to take us through an overview of LeSS framework. If you have any questions for James or for me, please leave it in the comments. And also, please let me know what are the future topics you want to see in the channel. Hope you'll enjoy watching. Thank you so much.
I would like to thank Hosny and Scrum-on for the opportunity to improve awareness of LeSS in the Middle East. I am James Carpenter, a certified LeSS trainer and coach based out of the United States. There are currently 4 LeSS trainers in the United States: Gene, MJ, Tim, and myself. Globally, there are 26 LeSS trainers. The majority of LeSS trainers, including myself, come from a hands-on engineering background. Every LeSS trainer has been involved in a LeSS-like adoption effort and has written an extensive case study regarding their experience as part of the candidate trainer process. My case study is the large networking hardware case study. There are lots of other wonderful case studies worth reading, but not that I can speak to at the same level of depth that I can my own. I am grateful to be a member of the LeSS trainer community. Having gone through the candidate trainer process myself, I can tell you every one of my peers is extremely competent, or they wouldn't have been able to have become a LeSS trainer. A great number of the better-known LeSS adoptions, such as the BMW autonomous driving effort, are found in Europe. As an American, it sometimes seems very few people have heard of LeSS, but the truth is more and more companies are beginning to experiment with LeSS. Here is a slide with some of the companies who have adopted LeSS in at least one area of their organization. Many of these have a corresponding case study, although sometimes the case study company names are anonymous, such as mine. LeSS is explicitly designed for highest level adaptiveness in the service of learning and delivering highest level value. LeSS is designed for product development. It is not designed for mass production, managing a help desk, managing construction of large physical infrastructure, or other more predictable work. LeSS is designed for research and development, which involves creative, collaborative engineering teams feeling their way through the fog to discover how to best solve a customer's business problem. LeSS takes direct aim at how organizational design influences adaptability and explicitly shapes organizational structure and reward systems to achieve that. An organization is at least the sum of the people, customers, structure, policies, processes, and practices, plus their interaction effects. To achieve organizational adaptability, all of these must be aligned with the system optimization goal of adaptability, and are therefore likely to require change. Only focusing on adopting a mere process framework and focusing on local team agility is very unlikely to achieve systemic organizational adaptiveness. When working in the complex systems domain, solutions are seldom understood in advance. An underlying assumption of LeSS is designing for adaptability will in turn result in greater value delivery and therefore eventually greater revenue as well. In this context, adaptability, value delivery, and greater revenue are compatible goals. In other kinds of work, this might not always be true. In my experience, for bespoke software, firmware, and hardware development, adaptability is almost always the right system optimization goal. LeSS is designed around several fundamental principles. Reading the descriptions verbatim, these are: large-scale Scrum is Scrum. It is not new and improved Scrum. LeSS is about applying the principles, elements, and purpose of Scrum in a large-scale context. Multiple team Scrum, not multiple Scrum teams. Empirical process control. Inspection and adaptation of the product, processes, organizational design, and practices to craft a situational, appropriate organization based on Scrum, rather than following a detailed formula. And empirical process control requires and creates transparency. Transparency, based on tangible, done items, short cycles, working together, common definitions, and driving out fear in the workplace. More with less. Number 1, in empirical process control, more learning with less defined processes. Number 2, in lean thinking, more value with less waste and overhead. Number 3, in scaling, more ownership, purpose, and joy with fewer roles, artifacts, and special groups. Whole product focus. One product backlog, one product owner, one potentially shippable product increment, one sprint, regardless if there are 3 or 33 teams. Customers want the product, not a part. Customer-centric. Identify and value and waste in the eyes of the paying customer. Reduce the cycle time from their perspective. Increase feedback loops with real customers. Everyone understands how their work today directly relates to paying customers. Continuous improvement towards perfection. Create and deliver a product all the time without defects that utterly delights customers, improves the environment, and makes lives better. Do humble and radical improvement experiments each sprint towards that shared goal. Systems thinking. See, understand, and optimize the whole system, not parts, and explore system dynamics. Avoid the local and sub-optimizations of focusing on the efficiency or productivity of individuals and individual teams. Customers care about the overall concept of cash cycle time and flow, not individual steps. Lean thinking. Create an organizational system whose foundation is managers as teachers who apply and teach systems thinking and lean thinking, manage to improve, and who practice go-see at Gemba. Add the 2 pillars of respect for people and continuous improvement, all towards the goal of perfection. Queuing theory. Understand how systems with queues behave in the R&D domain and apply those insights to managing queue sizes, work in progress limits, multitasking, work packages, and variability. As mentioned, LeSS is Scrum, but scaled to multiple teams. Let's look at basic LeSS from a process flow perspective. Basic LeSS is used for up to around 8 teams and perhaps a few more. You will notice there is a common shared product backlog. This ensures that every team is focused on whatever work will deliver the greatest value. Large group facilitation techniques are used to ensure the teams are directly involved in clarifying details of the product backlog. The product owner focuses on providing high-level mission intent and prioritization, but the details are fleshed out by the fully empowered, self-managing teams who work directly with customers and users to understand and implement solutions to the users' and customers' business problems. A LeSS product owner often has a title such as head of product. There are no business analysts, UX experts, or other such specialists outside of the teams. Each team is a self-managing, cross-functional, cross-component team empowered to make changes across the entire product. Sprint planning is divided into Part 1 and Part 2. In Part 1, the self-managing, cross-functional, cross-component feature teams determine how to allocate work across the teams. In Sprint Planning Part 2, the teams plan out their work in more detail, just as they would in single-team Scrum. All teams are working to a common shared definition of done and are delivering a single, combined, fully integrated, and shippable increment. In the case of software teams, this typically involves continuous integration and delivery using trunk-based development. LeSS places a huge focus on creating the structural conditions required to sustain a culture of technical excellence. With a common shared increment, common stakeholders, and a common product backlog, it only makes sense to have a common shared sprint review. As you can see from the diagram, this is exactly what LeSS does. Since there will be both team level and organizational challenges to deal with, LeSS has both a team level and overall retrospective. The team level retrospectives provide a safe space for the teams to surface and deal with team level challenges, whereas the overall retrospective is focused on surfacing and dealing with organizational level challenges. It is expected that senior management is in attendance for the overall retrospectives. As you can see, in most other aspects, LeSS is little different from single-team Scrum. There are nuances involving how Scrum Masters can be shared across multiple teams, details around multiple team refinement, details around multiple team design workshops, and other subtleties I have not gone into. Yet at a high level, from a process flow perspective, LeSS is just Scrum for multiple teams. The walkthrough of this diagram has been focusing on the process flow aspects of LeSS. Although these are important reflections of the LeSS principles, the deeper systemic organizational changes are far more important. Many of these deeper changes are found in the LeSS rules, with more guidance found in the various guides and experiments. The thoughtful use of systems thinking in designing compensation policies, reporting relationships, role definitions, and other organizational design elements is a critical component of LeSS. LeSS can and has been scaled to large organizations with hundreds of teams. This requires transitioning to LeSS Huge, which involves replicating the structure of basic LeSS with a few minor tweaks. Even in LeSS Huge, there is a common shared definition of done, common shared product backlog, and a single combined increment. A culture of excellence and an organizational design which nurtures it are required to support working at this scale. I will not go into more detail on LeSS Huge here. The key point is that LeSS has been successfully used at very large scale and that it is capable of scaling to meet your own needs if you are willing to make the organizational changes required to support it. Knowing where to begin learning more about large-scale Scrum can be a bit overwhelming. To help with that, I have created a Learning About LeSS page on the Agile Carpenter website. This page provides a short, curated list of articles, reference content, and books to focus on during the first few hours and days of study. By the time you have worked through the listed content, you will be sufficiently oriented to find your own path forward. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions you may have. I am able to provide a private or public in-person certified LeSS practitioner course most anywhere the airlines can take me. My global in-person certified LeSS practitioner page provides details on my course, as well as my contact information for requesting a private course for your company. If you would like me to deliver a public course in your area, you can fill out the interest survey linked at the top of the page. At standard pricing, a public course typically becomes viable if there are at least a dozen people who are willing to commit to attending. The more interested friends you can find, the more likely a public course becomes. A vacation destination is also an option if enough people are interested. Thank you for your interest in LeSS. Please feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn and to reach out with any questions you may have. Once again, I would like to thank Hosny and Scrum-on for generously hosting this presentation.